welcome to 1923 Main Street.
Home of the Daddy, Daughter, Disney Travel Podcast. We are your hosts.
I am Mike Bella-Braddock.
And I'm Amelia Bella-Braddock. And today we take a closer look at the 4 icons that represent the Walt Disney World parks.
The 4 icons, or as Walt Disney called them, and if you've taken a tour or read books, you know this, he called them Wienies.
What?
I know. It's
Whaties?
Wienies. And the reason he called them, so this is what he came up with when he was first thinking of Disneyland. So the story goes, just quickly before we begin, he had a dog who was sort of sick and old and nearing the end. And this dog would really do nothing except when Walt came home, it got really excited. And wieners, right? Like hot dogs. So because he grew up in a German neighborhood and they were like wieners. I forget the brand name of the time, but he would take one of these wieners, a raw hot dog, and he would, sort of play with the dog. And he noticed the dog would follow wherever he went with this wiener. It's like a treat, right? A treat for this dog. And that was like the joy of the day for both Walt and his dog.
Aww.
So as he was starting to think of Disneyland, and he was telling the Imagineers about the story, how the dog would follow him wherever he went because of this wiener. And he said, we need weenies in the park so that we can direct where people will go. And what he wanted is people not to stand at the front gate of Disneyland, but to go in to enter the park. So Sleeping Beauty Castle was the weenie.
It makes sense.
Yeah, so this became a term in Disney Imagineering that each park needs a weenie, something that will draw people towards it. And if you've taken the Behind the Magic tour, any of those tours, they'll talk about weenies. It's sort of a funny thing. You can call them icons like you did when you thought of this episode.
Well,
I
assure you I would not have thought of, let's do an episode on the Walt Disney World weenies.
I know. It makes you think of hot dog carts. Why aren't there hot dog carts, by the way? But I digress. So Sleeping Beauty Castle was the original weenie, or icon, as we can call it in this show.
We could call it icon because that just...
And when you look at it, at the time, it was really cool and it was big, but it's only 75 feet tall.
What do you mean at the time? It's cool.
Well,
it's
but in the 50s, it looked so big and castle-like. Now, all the other castles are much, much bigger.
Oh, now it doesn't look like a castle anymore?
It doesn't stand out as much when you go compared to the other parks. But it is still the original one, and it does draw your attention. You do want to go towards it, and that was the whole point of these park icons. So that was the original one. It was designed after, as many people know, that there's a castle in Bavaria from Mad King Ludwig, and that's what it was modeled after.
Really?
Yeah. So,
I'm learning so much.
Well, so then came what you know much better, Walt Disney World. So the next icon...
I'm not going to do that. Icon.
So the next icon was what?
Cinderella Castle.
And Cinderella Castle was, as we just said, much, much bigger. So they wanted...
Really?
Yeah. Oh, it's 189 feet. You can see it from 2 miles away from the Transportation and Ticket Center.
That's 2 miles away.
So they wanted something that was really big, that would really stand out, that you could see really well. And this time they went with the design the Imagineers call French Gothic. There's sort of 3 French castles, Chambord, Ussé, and Chenonceau, if you want to go to France and visit these places.
Now it looks like Sleeping Beauty Castle.
Well, now, yeah.
Same thing.
That's a whole other episode. We've already done that paint job. But paint job aside, thankfully paint jobs can come and go. The castle itself will stay. So it was way bigger. Like, what do you see Cinderella Castle as a good park icon?
Yeah, I think... When you think of Disney, not only does it represent the Magic Kingdom, but I think if they said draw one thing that represents Disney, you draw the castle, right? It's on
that's a really cool
It's on the Disney Plus logo. It's on everything.
Yeah, it's on all their movie beginnings.
Yeah, everything Disney has the castle. Because not only was Sleeping Beauty's castle the first icon they did, but it's also the first one they did at Walt Disney World, and it's the only one that they have in all of their different Disney locations. Everyone has a castle. Everyone doesn't have the other icons, just the castle.
That's true. We can sort of touch on that a bit as we go. And Cinderella Castle was way more ornate. There's way more to it. Inside, there's that mosaic that has
and plus it has a hidden room that no one ever goes to.
It's got 14 karat gold and silver in it.
Really?
Now, here's an interesting fact I found, and I don't know the answer to this. So in that mural where there's thousands and thousands of pieces, it was hand created. Apparently, the red is for the jealous sister and the green is for the envious stepsister.
Hmm.
And I started trying to look, and I couldn't find it. Who is who? Which one is envious and which one is jealous? Who's red and who's green? At first I thought, oh, redhead. It's got to be Anastasia, but I don't know if that's necessarily true.
I think red is Anastasia because it's the color of her dress, and Gisella's dress is green.
Oh, how silly. There you go. You just answered my question. So in that mural, they've actually incorporated that. So that's that sort of detail in
And jealous
Cinderella
and envy
Castle.
are like the same thing. So
Well, sort of.
yeah. Well, yeah, because Anastasia wanted to
I think jealousy's worse. Makes you be meaner.
yeah. So Anastasia then.
And then there's another cool fun fact that I don't know if you know, but when you're going into the castle, if you look up over the door, there's a crest, and that's actually the Walt Disney family crest.
Really?
Yeah, on that castle. So Cinderella Castle really is a true icon, the ultimate weenie, as Walt would say. I think it's big, it stands out. Well, it stands out even more now. So if that's what they were going for with that paint job, they achieved their goal. But it pops too much, in my opinion. But that aside, it is a true icon. It really does stand out. But then there was 3 other parks. So now they were venturing for the first time away from Magic Kingdom type
What
parks.
else can we do?
What else can we do?
We're not going to have a castle in every single park. Even if we call another park a kingdom, it can't have a castle.
So what was the next one?
Next one we'll touch on is Epcot.
And Epcot's icon is, of course.
Spaceship Earth.
And I know you like Spaceship Earth. What do you like about it? First of all, do you think it's a good icon?
The icon, yeah, I think is the right. Everyone thinks Epcot and they think of this bright white orb sort of thing. And I love the texture. I think it's very aesthetic to look at. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I love how all the Disney park icons, they're not like eyesores. They're like so carefully crafted that even the castles, they're all different, but they're all the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I like how it's another one that, and we're going to get into this more as we go, as we'll see shortly, but the Spaceship Earth, you can see it when you come in the gate. Boom, It's right there. And of course, so you go towards it, which was the whole point, to move people away from the stop, where do we go? It just sort of draws you in. That was his whole point. And it's pretty tall too. It's 180 feet. And you can also...
Oh, hey, that's the line in the song.
Yes. You can also see... Which song are you talking
Happily
about?
Ever After.
Yeah. And you can also see it from pretty much everywhere in the park. So it's a good sort of way to get your bearings if you don't know your way around. But
it's not quite as big as the castle, but
it's almost as tall, right? It's pretty tall.
Not quite as big, but bigger than Aurora. So,
and it's pretty cool because it was the first time. So there was a guy named Buckminster Fuller. He was the architect who designed it, but they never made a full globe that could stand. All those domes he'd done before were sort of half domes because a ball can't really sit on the ground. Right. So, but it is a full ball, but
it can't sit on the ground.
There's a trick to it. So this John Hench, who's an Imagineer, he came up with the idea. If you think of Spaceship Earth, there's almost 4 legs.
Not almost. There are 4 legs.
So what they did was they basically built a table. So the bottom is like a round bottomed flat top table, and then they put the top of the orb.
When you prop it up, like when you have those crystal balls.
Exactly.
Thing.
But it's actually 2 pieces. That's the point. It looks like it's one orb, but the bottom is sort of a table and the top sits on top of it.
Really?
But that's how they were able to create it. And here's my fun fact for this episode. You know how there's utilidors under the Magic Kingdom?
Yeah.
There's also secret passageways inside Spaceship Earth all the way around the
There has to be.
Yeah, for maintenance. But the maintenance workers in the early days used to get lost. They couldn't find their way around. So they started taking pencils and drawing lines on the wall as they walked, like breadcrumbs with Hansel and Gretel, so they could find their way back. That's because it was dark and it was all, this weird, and it was new. So that's pretty cool. So there are secret passageways around Spaceship Earth on the inside. And
that's actually really cool.
And even the name Spaceship Earth, this guy, Buckminster Fuller, who we're now making famous, he's pretty famous. He actually came up with that name in the 60s when he was writing a story, not to do with Disney. So they took that name, that he came up with. And it was actually, the one you see now that you grew up with was done in 2007. That's the last time the inside was updated. And you were born in 2008. And that's when they added all that whole exit stuff.
Really?
Yeah. What do you love? You love Spaceship Earth. Why do you
I
like
think
it?
it's a cool ride. I mostly like the end. I'm gonna be honest.
So that's one of
The-
the parts they
The
added.
end is my favorite part because you get to like. I love seeing the future. Although a lot of some of the stuff that they say is like the future you can actually get, like the closet where it picks out your own clothes. Well, you can buy that. Or like some of the transportation methods that they have are actually real. So that's kind of cool and neat because that was not real 13 years ago.
And that's why they were about to start a new update. And now, with everything that happened, it's delayed, but it will be updated once again. So we'll have to
Yes.
see. We'll have to see what they do. And that outside you're talking about they're aluminum triangles. So there's like
Really?
10,000 of them. I remember when they were
That's a
putting that
lot.
together. Like we could see it being constructed. It was pretty neat.
Because it's huge.
It's huge, yeah. So I think that's a pretty good icon. Do you, as far as it goes? I
Yeah.
think you do too. Here was my one thing when I used to sell Disney travel. I would always tell people it works so well that people go in and they line up for it. And I used to say, people, that's a rookie mistake. Do not go and stand in line for Spaceship Earth when you walk in the park first thing in the morning. Because later in the day, usually there'll be less lines, or you can get a fast pass.
Because everyone goes to Spaceship Earth, and then all like the newbies go to Spaceship Earth, and then the other lines are free for us. So don't tell people that.
And it's not the only icon with a ride, but it's the only one with sort of a popular ride like that's right in front of you. So when you walk in, you just sort of, I better, people just go in like zombies and stand in line for it if they haven't been to the park before. So
even if they have been to the park before,
if you're listening
some people
and you've
do
never
that.
been, know that tip. Do not stand unless there's no line. But if there's a line, do not wait first thing in the morning. There are other things with bigger lines that you should get in first.
I mean, it's what they need. They need like underground tunnels between all of the parks where they just have like a hyperloop and you can just zoom between all the parks for the cast members.
That would be cool.
For maintenance. Not for you, for the cast members.
Do it for us instead of that gondola.
But I think they have one
AKA
for the people on TV shows who just,
Skyliner.
snap their fingers in. Oh, I'm in Epcot
it's pretty
now.
expensive to build those hyperloops
I know, but Disney.
just for cast members.
Okay, well
You
then
would have to
Disney
let it use
open
us.
transportation to the public. Hyperloop idea.
Yeah.
Let's do that, please.
Put that down for the next 50 years. All right. Next on our list,
Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom. Now, this is the first one, in
That's
my
not
opinion.
totally in your face icon.
That's right. So this,
But I think this one you wouldn't be surprised to hear that this is the icon.
no, it's a good icon for the park, but it's not a weenie, I think, because you can't see it. Right? You come into the park and you don't see it until you
Yeah.
travel off the original
'Cause
entrance
it's not as
here.
big.
It's not as big, and in fact,
And also the Animal Kingdom layout is incredibly confusing.
yeah, it's if you've never been there before, it's hard to find your way around. And the thing about it is, I was looking back at some old pictures. The Tree of Life used to really stand out, right? It was so big. Wait, how big
Yeah.
is it? It's 145 feet tall, so it's pretty
So
tall.
it keeps getting bigger than Aurora's castle, but they're
But
so tiny.
all the real trees have grown up beside it. So suddenly, it's funny when you look at pictures, right? The old pictures and what it looks like now. It doesn't look as big anymore because real nature has
Wait,
grown
trees
up.
are 145 feet tall.
Well, they're not quite as tall as it yet, but they've filled in around it. So when you're when you come out of and you just stand on the bridge before Wilderness Explorers is
Yeah.
on your and you see the Tree of Life for the first time.
Yeah.
Now you see a lot of greenery all around it, and
Oh, that's awesome.
that you didn't originally see as big in the first place. That happens. It's true with all the parks, but it affects the Tree of Life more than anything else.
Because it's, a tree.
But the Imagineers, in one of my Imagineering books, they thought of the Tree of Life as their biggest feat ever. They thought
Wow.
it was amazing. And the story behind it is pretty cool. So they said the animals aren't carved into the tree. They saw them as growing out of the tree, that the tree itself was the animal kingdom. So you can imagine all the creative stories that went into
Yeah.
this Tree of Life. There's a whole backstory to it.
Really?
Yeah. Do you know what it is?
Nope.
So it's Discovery Island, which I think is cool because it was a throwback to the one on Bay
yeah.
Lake, right? So Discovery Island. So the Tree of Life.
That's Discovery Island.
Yeah, that was the original. And then
Right.
they called it. They closed that when Animal Kingdom opened. So I like how they took the Discovery Island name and worked it into the park. But so it's a little throwback to Bay Lake. But The idea was the tree was there, and then the village of Discovery Island grew up around it because the tree provided life and water. It was a source of life for everyone. And so this village was created
But isn't
around
the
the
tree of life from something? I feel like.
Well, the Tree of Life is a famous, like every sort of
say-
culture has a Tree of Life story.
I was saying,
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that before.
But this Tree of Life, you'll love this because I know how we love the Epcot Flower and Garden Festival. And yeah, but
Do we?
do you know the Tree of Life was the Imagineers found a bonsai plant at the Flower and Garden Festival, and
No.
yes,
No.
that's what it was designed after. So every time you look at the Tree of Life now,
They
you
just
can
ruined my second favorite
you
part.
can think of the Flower and Garden Festival and how the Tree of Life was modeled after a bonsai plant. And the other cool thing, not cool, but sort of interesting thing is, it's pretty big. And
Yeah.
it's got all these fake leaves on it and all the stuff. Well, they had to figure out how's this thing going to hold up in hurricanes? So the actual frame inside the Tree of Life,
It's metal.
you know what it is. The Imagineers are watching one of them was watching TV, and there was a show about the oil rigs out in the Gulf of Mexico and everywhere else they have oil rigs out at sea. That's basically what's inside. The frame of like an oil rig holds it together, so it's super sturdy because they thought if these things are out in the ocean for hurricanes. So that's what they did in it. And there's one thing that when I was looking into before this episode, doing some research that I did not know. That where I must have read because it's in one of my Imagineering books. But this is really cool. The original plans for the Tree of Life had a restaurant.
No.
Yeah, it was going to be a restaurant. And
Why'd they change it?
And it was going to be called The Roots. And it was going to be underneath.
Imagineers do that.
And it was going to be
Make it,
a
please.
super high-end, like the best restaurant in Animal Kingdom. And they never did that.
Do that, Imagineers. Do it.
In fact, they didn't. Now it's stuff to be a bug's life in there. And they didn't even think of that till halfway through. Making it, they put a theater in. And
I personally think they should make a restaurant still. I think that was a great idea.
Yeah, because they might get rid of It's Tough to Be a Bug soon, A Bug's Life. Well, when they do, they could put the restaurant idea in there. So Disney Imagineers, if you're listening, let's go
Which
back.
we know you are.
Yeah, we know you love our show. Well, this is your idea, but we're throwing it back at you. Hey, remember that restaurant idea?
Do it.
Do it. Yeah, let's do that. And the other thing, which I'm glad they didn't do, is their other original plan was that you'd be able to climb up into the Tree of Life, and it was going to be a lookout over the whole park.
That would be awesome.
But it would probably sort of wreck it. You don't want to see people, unless they could find a way to
They could do it really up high in the leaves.
Yeah, they would have to.
That would be
They
cool.
thought about it. That was one of their original ideas, was so you could climb up and sort of like the Swiss Family Treehouse, which we never go in.
What's the Swiss Family Treehouse?
Exactly. Or Tarzan's treehouse
What
in
is-
Disneyland. So
What are these places?
both Magic Kingdoms, Adventureland, which as we heard in the last episode, you don't really love.
I didn't know there was this treehouse.
There's a
I could go-
treehouse in it. You can go up. Well, remember the leprechaun
No.
in Disneyland? The little leprechaun's house. Oh, I take pictures of it. You don't pay attention to half the stuff I show you in the parks.
I
all
really
the
don't.
details. Well, anyway, the leprechaun's house is around the Tarzan treehouse in Disneyland, and there's the Swiss Family Treehouse or whatever it's called now in the Magic Kingdom.
We need to go here.
Yeah, you can go in. You just walk around up there, but I used to like it when I was a kid.
All these
So there you
things.
go, something to do in Adventureland
Something
next
new.
time.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's so the Tree of Life, really cool thing, but really not a weenie, but still a park icon, definitely. It definitely, and it's a really good park icon for that park too. I like the idea.
because when you think of Animal Kingdom, you don't you think of Everest and you think of Flight of Passage, but your mind immediately goes towards the Tree of Life.
Yeah, I mean more of a weenie now are the islands in Pandora, because you can actually see the floating islands from outside the park.
Yeah, but they're not.
They're not an icon, but they're what you can see from anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe not from anywhere, because there's so many trees when you're on the ground.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tree of Life, good icon, definitely.
Good icon. All
And
right.
now we move.
Our controversial icon.
The whole controversial park, really. Disney's Hollywood Studios.
It had an icon.
Did
what
it?
happened?
Did it ever?
Yes.
I don't know if I'd call it. It's changed a lot. I think the problem with this park goes back to the very beginning. It's the same as Walt Disney Studios in Disneyland Paris, which there you walk in and there's a big building in front of you. So both of those parks were thrown together really quickly without much thought, and it shows. So to this,
Hey.
they were. And Hollywood Studios was thrown together under the threat of Universal coming to Orlando. So they got
No.
together with MGM, and it was originally MGM Studios, and
What's MGM?
MGM is a movie studio. So they had a partnership with them, and it was meant to be a working, and it was for a while. They were actually producing, live films and animation at the studio. So that was the original idea, but it's a horrible layout. It's just a mess.
Worse than Animal Kingdom?
Well, Animal Kingdom is done with thought. It makes sense if you look at the map. Hollywood Studios just randomly goes off
Okay, yeah.
in different directions with no real land at all.
I don't know where I'm like I mean I don't really know where I'm going in the Magic Kingdom, but I have an idea. And Epcot, it's just a big circle, so
But
I get lost in
there's
Hollywood.
There's themed areas, right? So even now, Hollywood, great stuff. Toy Story Land, Star
It's
Wars.
my favorite park.
It's just
because
sort
it
of
has
randomly
all the
thrown
stuff.
in. Yeah, there's great stuff in it, but it's like a patchwork quilt. It's just randomly thrown in.
I don't even know if there's a way for them to fix it.
Not now. They just put Galaxy's Edge in, and they put Toy Story Land in. So they're throwing things in. But the real problem also was this icon, because there really wasn't one. Now, some people would say, well, it's the Chinese theater, because that's right at the end of it. But that really doesn't stand out.
No, it's not.
Then they had the water tower with the Mickey ears.
They got rid of that?
They moved that away.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I
they
remember
had
seeing
what
pictures of that.
you grew up with, which was what?
The sorcerer's hat.
The sorcerer's hat. And you know what? I really liked the sorcerer's hat.
It was a good icon. That was a weenie.
A lot of people, it was a weenie, and a lot of people hated it and still hate it. I think they've moved it, I don't know where. I think it's in overseas somewhere. It's
Really?
not, yeah, they moved stuff like that around, but I really don't know why they got rid of it. There was someone on Twitter once saying, oh, well, it didn't have any meaning. Well, it's this from The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It had total meaning. It's Hollywood Studios. It's from one of the most innovative
It's
movies
people
Walt
who don't
did.
watch the movies.
Yeah, I mean,
that
or
you
know
wouldn't
the history, but it really did fit in there. So now that's gone, and they've got Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in the Chinese theater. It was the great movie ride, and sure, it's right in front of you at the end, but there's a stage in front of it half the time.
Yeah, and then that's like saying, oh well, Pandora's right in front of you. That big building. That's the weenie.
So now, what do they use for an icon for Hollywood Studios?
Well, I'm not really sure, but because I have this Disney mug that I got at Disney, and it has all these little icons in the back of it, and they're using Tower of Terror.
Yeah, so Tower of Terror is probably that. So
I think it might be even the logical choice that are rockin', to be honest, or possibly
well,
Galaxy's
you know what?
Edge.
Tower of Terror you can actually see from Epcot practically, and you can see it from all over the place. So it is weenie-like.
That I guess it does have this view standpoint of the weenies, like the Epcot Ball and the castle. So
But
I'll
let's
give it
face
that.
it,
But
we're just saying that because there's nothing else. It's like the biggest thing.
they need to make a weenie for Hollywood.
Now, you know what I heard once? A few years ago, there was a lot of chatter around this topic going around, and there was a really cool idea, and
What?
which would make even more sense now. Someone said, could you imagine if they built a Death Star, a gigantic Death Star? Could you imagine walking into Hollywood Studios and sort of straight in front of you would be this
In like
ominous-
Galaxy's Edge?
No, right at the end of Hollywood Boulevard, like right in
Yes.
front, right where the hat was.
I could imagine that. I want that.
Could you imagine? Like, here's the problem, though. It's now you've got Galaxy's Edge. Could you put it out there? Would there be something in it? But I mean, I don't know.
Or make it gigantic. Put it in Galaxy's Edge, but make it gigantic enough that you can see it.
Yeah, that would have to be
Right.
pretty big. But still,
I mean, you can see Tower of Terror.
Yeah, that's true. But there might be a way to do it. So I thought that was sort of a cool idea.
That is a cool
Yeah,
idea.
something like that it would at least play into the themes and would be a
Yeah.
true weenie icon like Walt,
Put
intended
back
it.
the hat.
And even if we skip to California for a minute and you
Yeah.
think of California Adventure Park,
What do they have?
well, they consider the Grizzly Peak, but that's not. It's not this. Nobody goes towards the peak, so it's not a weenie.
No, it's
so that's
not.
another park also thrown together. So all these parks, Walt Disney Studios, California Adventure, and Hollywood Studios, that were thrown together, now you see when we sort of look at it this way.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
lacking. They're lacking. So good thing is you can fix them all. Well, California Adventure might be hard because they got a lot of stuff. I like the park. It just doesn't have a great weenie. Doesn't have a great icon.
Ooh. Now I have a question.
They do
for
use
you.
the peak. What?
You have such great ideas for the weenies for all these parks. Well, you suggested a villain's park. What weenie are you thinking?
Oh, man. Oh, a dragon.
Yes.
A dragon's lair. Like a dragon on a...
I was thinking like a Forest of Thorns, but that's good.
Now, it might be a little bit of a copy of Universal. As I'm saying this, I'm already thinking they've got the dragon at Universal.
They do.
You know the dragon in Diagon Alley?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a dragon on the roof to
But
breathe
that's
fire.
not the weenie. That's just...
I know. So I was thinking...
That's just on top of Gringo.
If you could walk into the village park and there's some sort of gigantic
Village
dark villains. If you walk into the
Or
villains
like a
park,
forest of like thorns.
the thorns, but then a big rocks crop coming out of it and the dragon on top of it
Yes.
with its wings spread.
Yes.
And yes, it would have to breathe fire. And yes, it would be a bit. However, hang on. They already have the breathing fire dragon in the Magic Kingdom. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a complete copy.
Yeah, they already do that.
Yeah, and it's
Universal
their own IP, so their own intellectual property. But I think that would be a possible cool one.
Yeah. And also the villains park should have like a forest of thorns, which is like a thorn maze.
Oh, yeah, like
I'll
the
throw
maze.
that in there.
Like they have that maze in Disneyland Paris.
I know.
Which we actually got lost in, and it was hot.
I
that
didn't
day.
get lost in it. You guys got lost.
you
I
were
led
just-
you out.
Yeah. Oh, did you? There is a tower there where you could go and see where you were. So that was sort of neat. Yeah, Thorn Maze would be sort of neat. Lots of good stuff for our Villains Park. And if you haven't listened to our
Yes.
episode
Disney
of Disney
Dreaming.
Dreaming, give it a holla. Because,
Yes.
we want a Villains Park. Or at least a park with a Villains Land. Not necessarily a Villains Park. Because we want Wakanda Land in there too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we have had some fun here today diving into these icons.
Yes.
So, Disney Imagineers, let's put our thinking caps on for Hollywood Studios because supposedly they were going to rename it.
Again.
Well, yeah,
Again.
it needs. They want to sort of give it. I think they're trying to give it more of a personality. So when we come out
I
of
like
this,
Hollywood Studios.
when we get our feet back under us
There's
as a
something
company,
about
Disney.
film because I like that.
I think it'll keep that. They're just like someone's even said Disney Studios, just something simple. They already have Walt Disney Studios in Paris, but
Yeah, that's another name then.
yeah. Well, that's another park that's they're trying to fix that too with their superheroes coming in there.
Yes.
So that's all we have for this week, folks. Actually, it's sort of fun talking about these icons, and I like the ideas, just chatting about them. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think would be a good weenie icon for Hollywood Studios?
Yeah.
What would you like to see in the place where the Sorcerer's Hat used to be? And that would be fun. I'd love to hear some ideas. So let us know. Drop us a line on social media or by email. Check us out at 1923 Main Street on pretty much every social media platform and
check
.com.
out our shop.
Yes, we have a
1923 Main
new
Street
shop. We have new shops of some cool stuff, Disney inspired, on Redbubble and on TeePublic. Just search 1923 Main Street and you'll find us. And of course, share our episodes if you like them. We love that, help us out by sharing it
And
with
check
your
us
friends.
out on Patreon.
And check out our Patreon page because this is where we can give back for people who like to support the show. We have some cool things we like to share with you. So patreon.com/1923 Main Street. And just thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. We love doing the show and would be nothing without you all listening in. So have a magical day, everyone.
Bye-bye.